Let's be real. Have you ever been in a conversation that was so tense, so gridlocked it felt like a hostage situation? Well, you're not totally wrong. We're going to dive into how you can handle those exact high-stakes moments using the same tools an FBI hostage negotiator uses to de-escalate anger and, get things done.
Okay, so the first thing you have to get is this, and it comes straight from former FBI lead negotiator Chris Voss. He says that when emotions are running hot, our brains literally shut down the part that handles logic. So trying to win with facts and figures at that point, it's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. It just doesn't work. We need a totally different approach.
And that's the million-dollar question, right? Because the goal here isn't to win the argument like you see in the movies. The real victory is calming things down enough so you can get the information you need, create a little breathing room for a solution, and basically guide the whole conversation to a better place, all while you're keeping your cool.
So the whole system for these tools is something called tactical empathy. Now, this isn't about being fluffy or nice, and it's definitely not about agreeing with the other person. Think of it as a strategic skill. It's about understanding the feelings and the mindset of the person you're talking to so you can influence where the conversation goes next.
Okay, let's jump into our first tool. Chris Voss calls this the closest thing to a Jedi mind trick in a negotiation. It is incredibly simple, but trust me, it is ridiculously effective, especially when someone is getting worked up.
It is literally what it sounds like. You just repeat the last few words they said, or the most important words, but you say it with a questioning tone, like you're curious. This tiny little move does two things. It shows you're locked in and listening, and for some deep psychological reason, it just makes the other person want to explain themselves more.
Just look at the difference here. The before is what we all tend to do. We challenge them and boom, their defenses go right up. But the after, using the mirror, is totally different. It's a gentle invitation. It sidesteps a fight and just invites them to tell you more. It lets you stay curious instead of getting confrontational.
So yeah, this is not just about mimicking someone. Mirroring works because it builds a connection. But here's the secret ingredient, the part everyone forgets: silence. After you say the mirror, you have to shut up for at least 4 seconds. It feels a little weird, but that pause creates a void that the other person will rush to fill, usually with exactly the information you need.
All right, on to our next tool. This is what you use after a mirror gets them talking. Calibrated questions are all about redirecting their energy towards solving the problem with you. Think of these questions as perfectly engineered conversation shifters. They're designed so they can't be answered with a simple yes or no. Instead, they make the other person pause, think, and start working on your problem for you. And honestly, they won't even realize they're doing it.
You can feel the power shift, can't you? The questions on the left are aggressive. They scream, "I'm blaming you," and just put people on defense. But the ones on the right, they're totally collaborative. They pull the other person into the process and make them feel like you're on the same team.
This is the heavyweight champion. When someone hits you with an impossible demand, instead of just shutting them down with no, you calmly, respectfully ask, "How am I supposed to do that?" It forces them to stop, look at the problem from your side, and actually help you figure it out. It's the most powerful, polite way to say no.
Okay, this next tool is going to feel a little weird at first because it flips everything we've ever been taught about negotiation on its head. We're always trying to get to yes. But what if I told you the most powerful word you can hear is actually no?
So Voss says that hearing no isn't a failure. It's not a rejection. It's an amazing opportunity. No is where the real work actually starts, because it's the first time you get to see where their real boundaries are and what's actually at stake for them.
Now here's the big secret. No is almost never the final answer. It's usually a shield. When people say no, they feel safe. They feel like they're in control. And weirdly enough, that feeling of safety is what lets them drop their guard and actually listen to what you have to say next. It's a gift.
This is such a perfect example. Asking, "Do you have a few minutes?" corners people. A yes feels like a trap they don't want to get into. But if you ask, "Is now a bad time?" it gives them an easy out. They can comfortably say, "No, it's not a bad time." And now you have their full attention because they made the choice. You gave them control.
Okay, so we've got our 3 tools: the mirror, the calibrated question, and the power of no. Now let's see how you can stack these together in real time when a conversation starts to go off the rails. This sequence is your playbook. Okay, picture it. They're angry. You start with a mirror to get them talking more. Then you use what's called a label, a phrase like "it seems like" or "it sounds like," to show you get the feeling behind their words. That immediately brings the temperature down.
Then, and only then, you pivot with a calibrated question to shift from pure emotion to solving the problem together.
This is so important, but it's really subtle. See, when someone says you're right, a lot of the time they're just trying to make you go away. It's a brush off. But when you hear, that's right, that's a breakthrough. That means you summed up their position so perfectly, they feel totally understood. That is the moment a real agreement becomes possible.
So at the end of the day, that's really the choice, isn't it? These tools work because they change your goal from winning a fight to starting a discovery mission. If you can just stay curious, use these questions to redirect, and make the other person feel genuinely heard, you can turn even the worst conversation from a total disaster into a solution.